All right, welcome to Health a Second Opinion. Dr. Chad here with you. Excited about bringing some new health information, some principles, some truth that allows you to experience a better quality and quantity of life. And so let's get this thing dialed in here. One of the things, just got back from a learning experience that it keeps me on that road of lifetime learning and staying dedicated to you, the public, my patients, my family, and just this whole world by trying to hold myself accountable to this principle that life is change. That's the only thing that is 100% certain, is that life will change. And if we ask ourselves the question and are honest, a lot of times, life isn't perfect. And we have the choice to be human doing, or we have the choice to be human beings. And if we get busy in the doing to distract ourselves from the concept and always staying busy and never really dealing with the underlying issue that life isn't like we really want it, it's not the life that we maybe have had imagined, and therefore we want things to be different, whether that be physically, spiritually, financially, job, fulfillment, family, whatever, all of it, any of those things. If it's not that way, then we have to ask ourselves, well, am I willing to do what is necessary to obtain what's possible? And once we've asked ourselves that question and we've taken ownership of the fact that life is what we make it, I was then influenced to really engage in the Max Living Conference down in Dallas this past weekend. Really blessed by some of the great speakers, like Natalie Jean Forte, and we had Dr. Larry Bavlesky, MD, and Sarah Losby really rocked the house. And it's becoming a staple of being there, hearing these wonderful people pour into us so that we can come home and re-engage in our communities to again be a brighter flame and to bring light to rid out the darkness, because really that's what it is, right? Darkness is the absence of light. And so when we think about these things, tuning into this lifetime learning, one of the things that Sarah brought up that was amazing to me was most of us are suffering from this when-I syndrome. And I mean, that's me too. I go in and out of these things, and honestly, all of us do, if we're really, again, being honest with ourselves, is that sometimes we can get stuck in this, I'll make the change when I'll be happy when I'll give more to the church when I'll exercise when and you just plug it in. And we get stuck there. And we have to realize that there is no finish line. So the when-I syndrome says, if we really think about it, life is this game that we're playing where we are trying to understand what it is that is a win for us. Where are we trying to achieve? And it's an infinite game. It's not a finite game. It doesn't have exact rules and players, and it's not like Monopoly, where you roll the dice. It's the result. You go your spaces. You land on whatever it is, and you either buy it or pay or whatever. There's rules, and it's a set number of players, and that's the concept. If you want to play Monopoly, that's the rules. Life's not that way, right? And we're unaware of a lot of the things that are in the background that are playing roles, and could be positive, could be negative, could be sinister. And so when we look at these things, understanding that life's that infinite game, and therefore there's no finish line, and you're never going to be, this is from Larry Pavlesky, MD, you're never going to eat enough broccoli to never have to eat broccoli again. It's not like you can just sit down, I'm going to eat 5 pounds of broccoli, never have to eat it again. I eat enough broccoli, I'm going to be healthy. I got enough sulforaphane, and I got enough all of the different enzymes and the things that all the extra sulfur containing compounds, so that I can build more glutathione and I can detoxify better and blah, blah, blah. And all these things. It's not going to happen. That shower that you hopefully took this morning, it's probably wearing off. Like, well, it's about 6:30 at night when I'm recording this. And so we're going to need another one. The toothbrushing, the things that are health related, life related, they're infinite. And as long as we want to stay alive, we have to find the right combination of things for us to stay as close to 100% function as possible in our spiritual life, our mental life, emotional life, our physical life. And the more attention in the way that, it's like that game Cups, you're like, there's only one ping pong ball and you've got the cups and you're shuffling them back and forth. And it's like, which one's the cup? Where's the ping pong ball? And it's like, you're shuffling things back, your priorities around all the time to allow yourself to achieve those things, because everything's important. Everything that you value is important. And then admitting to yourself, what are you valuing right now? And what is, as Warren Buffett would say, as I was reading his article, or an article about him in Inc., was talking about that his strategy has always been invest in the long term. And it's not just about investing in stocks. It's about everything in his life. Yeah, he's one of the richest people on the planet, $117 something billion now. Probably more. That was article's a little old. So when we think about that, if we're investing in ourselves for this concept that I am going to keep living, I got to do certain things right now, and I need short-term chunks, but either way, I'm trying to get to this outer goal that's never ending. I'm never going to quite get there. It's never going to be perfect, because I'm going to be different when I reach that threshold. And therefore my needs, my wants, my everything will change, because change is inevitable. And so when we start to think about that, and we look back at our parents, we look back at the things that we wish we had known and that we now know, and we can apply that knowledge, and we look at the way we want the world to be and we want our children to be. One of the biggest things that, Dr. Larry, and I'll turn this on, or I'll let you see this banner, because that's his name. He has a show that'll be going on just as we're ending here on Facebook. So please look him up. And it's Dr. P and Dr. T talking on Facebook. And it seems to run weekly. And I'm going to be tuning in for the first time, because I just met this guy at this last Max Living conference, and when he was doing some continuing ed for us. And it was amazing for him to be this MD that was talking about he's a pediatrician, and his experience was originally ER pediatrician, and then went into practice and has been practicing now for the last 20-something years in the private practice, and how brain development and the concept of the hindbrain, midbrain, forebrain, and the way that we've been both parenting and technology and the way things are going, and how that has changed the development of certain parts of the brain that really link to the things that we're seeing in society, where we have lots of anxious, stressed out, angry adults. If you don't believe me, just like try to drive to Chattanooga or your town and do anything. Try to, interact with people. It's just amazing how ticked off the world is, and anxious, and how much anxiety is going on. In that we are really looking at, if I can flip through my notes and get to where I want to be. And so when we look at these things, it relates to the type of stimulation that our children have. And let's step back. We're going to do a little learning here, and we're going to talk about this so that you can implement it in both your life and in your, if you are a parent, grandparent, all these things. And he was in helping changing the world by first changing ourselves, and learning and applying that knowledge, and then giving the gift, and trusting our children with their trust fund is the knowledge of how to positively change their lives, to experience the quality and quantity of life that they desire. and having that expectation of hope. And yeah, I think that really is just, that's what I want to leave my kids. Yeah, I want them to be chiropractors too, but I want them, more importantly, to have these other things, and then I think they'll, optimally just choose it because of the ability for us to positively affect the way the body works by removing interference to it. So that was one of the things that Dr. Larry Kozlowski loves and interacts and works with chiropractors, because the concept being that if I move properly through here, let me switch the other way. Here we go. When the nervous system is affected by subluxations, misalignments of the spine, putting pressure on nerves, it affects the body's ability to sense what's going on in the body. So there is a disafferentation, meaning that the brain is not aware of everything exactly perfectly the way that it wants to. I believe it was Chestnut who said that we're only consciously aware of around 50 things every second, but our brains are processing literally trillions of bits of information every second, but we're only consciously aware of about 50 of those. And so all that subconscious processing is going on through this afferentation, the nervous system processing all this information from every organ and tissue and cell in the body, going back to the brain's making the decisions to make them all work properly. So when we're subluxated, when the bones are out of alignment, they're putting pressure on nerves, then the brain is not getting all the information. One of the things and how this relates is, and everybody's stressed out, we saw it was we have to understand that anxiety and depression are now the most prevalent mental illness in America today, affecting some 40 some odd million people. It's like 18+% of people are suffering from anxiety and depression. And so that is a domination of our body through the sympathetic nervous system. And that sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight's just getting in, and this can be affected. And this goes back to that parenting thing. And I'm gonna dial this in and loop this to where we can see how the brain development happens in our children, and how some of our parenting styles that I've been guilty of at times too, and then how the technology has played a role in creating the fact that we now have more children today than ever before suffering. We have children now that are just anxious, exhausted, ADD, ADHD. They're in fight or flight constantly. And part of that can be driven by the fact that this nervous system is out of balance. Vagus nerve is approximately 85% afferent. Why do I talk about that? Because it's easy to Google. You can get online, you can look up vagus nerve and the polyvagal theory, and you can look and see how it affects digestion, how it affects the heart rhythms, how it affects the HPA axis, the hypothalamus pituitary axis. So when we look at how the brain's interacting, it's a great way for you to self-educate and then learn something about how this nervous system balance, and the vagus nerve is meant to calm down and switch on the parasympathetics, that learning, that feed. It's the feed and breed system, as they say. So it slows down that sympathetic fight or flight. And if you've ever been in a really vivid situation, an auto accident or a fight or whatever, where you're struggling, everything goes away, and it's this hyper focus. Try to experience life walking through with that same level of anger and anxiety and hyper focus, and then go try to take a test. Try to be a parent. Try to juggle getting your kids to school, picking them up, being a good person at work, going to church, juggling everything. It would make it a lot harder. Well, our children are growing up this way. and it's being influenced. And that's why I want you to, again, check out this guy who's going to do an even better job than I am of talking and relating and putting this information in perspective so that you too can learn this and be that lifetime learner. So again, we shape and change our world through changing ourselves and keeping us on that trajectory that we want. And so that we can, again, have our children have a better life. So this is the reason that he works with us, because of our powerful ability to affect the nervous system and allow it to self-balance. And therefore, then he was talking about how children, when they're born, naturally have high levels of the norepinephrine and adrenaline. And it's because they are in just fight or flight mode. They're meant to just, they're born with only reflexes. There's no voluntary motion. Now you see them jerk and twitch and punch themselves in the face and all these things, and you see this happen, and it's just not quite putting it in this words. And then you see, then eventually the only thing they could do, they have the rooting reflex and things. You can just brush their cheek, and then naturally the mouth goes that way. There's the sucking reflex and things that are just in tune. They're innately wired. And then they're learning the world, they're experiencing the world, and they are in fight or flight. And mom's adrenaline, norepinephrine, is high also to mirror that child's for protection. They're naturally communicating through their saliva and absorbing, or child saliva absorbing into mom, reflexing, and chemically they're passing things back and forth. And he said that when the problems often start in utero. So if the mom experienced a very traumatic pregnancy, then or a very emotional pregnancy, stressful pregnancy, those hormones were flowing through her. It affected even the tone of the umbilical cord and what it transmits back and forth between the child. And then how is the birth process? Is there interventions that happen that were trauma to the child? Because literally, I want you to go online, watch a video of a C-section and how much, just watch what they do to the head to bring the shoulders out. And seeing as how more than 50% of births now are C-section. And so look at the damage that happens to that neck. And this is where vagus live. This is where the parasympathetics live. This is where fight or flight gets shut down. And so if our children are receiving damage from a lot of intervention in the birth process, then they, like you'll see them bring them out and then just hold them by their head, and then they hand them over to the other doctor, and they say from then on, swallow and wrap them, make sure to protect that cervicals, hold their head. It's weak. They don't have any protection there. But watch a C-section. Just watch it, or watch a forceps birth, or watch a vacuum suction birth. Watch the videos. And then understand that, ask yourself, if that trauma happens up there, how do we think that alignment and that nervous system's functioning? We think there could be damage. Well, Harvard did the studies that said, yeah, it's like 8 out of 10. But anyway, so we're now back to this lifetime learning principle, and then understanding that so what we want to do is, as parents, as mothers, fathers, getting ourselves out of fight or flight, helping our children get out of that fight or flight. And one of the things that was one of my takeaways was that the games and the technology and the phones and all the things that we're using, that we're handing over to our children, their brain development is naturally hindbrain, then it goes to midbrain, which is the balance, the coordination, the synchronization of that child learning their world. And as they develop from infancy, where their adrenaline levels are going down, their norepinephrine levels are going down, that parasympathetic nervous system's calming down. The mom and the baby are in better sync. There's life, there's coordination, there's balance. Now that child's starting to get motor control. It's getting to, finally can use its hand. Oh my God, I've got a thumb. And oh man, I can suck on a thumb. And starting to do these things and learn and experience its world. Then it's about training the body. And that's when it shifts from hindbrain into the midbrain. And it's laying down those pathways of balance and coordination to get what it wants. And it's in life, and learning is through experience. And this is one of the things that's so amazing. His quote was I forget who he was quoting, but hard times make for strong men. Strong men make for good times. Good times make for weak men. Weak men make for hard times. And so depression, World War One, World War II, massive amounts of innovation, massive amounts of people just learning and growing and sticking together and figuring it out, and just the unparalleled amount of expansion in this ability to figure it out. And then we get into easy times, and we start, and we, as parents, in these suffered greatly through the Great Depression, World War One and World War II. So what did they want? They wanted better times, easier times. They wanted their kids not to suffer, and they wanted them to not go through that. And so what did they do? They provided, those strong men and women provided the easier times. And therefore, helicopter parenting was born. And, oh, wait, don't do that. And don't experience that. You're going to fall. And you're going to do this. And I've been so guilty, like, me and stoves and things like that. I'm like, I'm gonna get burned, we all have our little fears and things where we helicopter parent and things. And then the other insult is the device parenting, the just hand it over. Oh, I can't deal with this. Life's too stressful. I'm stressed. I'm anxious, I'm exhausted, I'm having trouble focusing. And so we give them the very thing that's designed to shove them right back into hindbrain development through lots of things that are driving their body, driving up their nervous system, causing that fight or flight system to subconsciously be activated, and driving them into that totally addiction. It's an addiction. Ask a parent who has had an Xbox with their kids, or a phone, or anything, giving them any device, period. If that child then will do just about anything, like they'll mow the yard with scissors, if they could get a couple hours on their Xbox, right? And like, it's just insane. The addiction is real, and it is neurologically so. And so knowing this now, knowing this as a parent, and understanding the brain development, not just we all know it, and we say it, and we know it, and then we still give in, because life has been anxious. These last couple of years with the COVID and all that stuff, it's just been like extraordinary levels of our children and us being in a very unfamiliar, very frightening times. So we're trying to figure it out. But that helicopter parenting doesn't allow that child to experience life and develop the motor coordination to experience life, and the development of those pathways through finding their crawling over, falling, picking themselves up, finding their way into the living room and standing up, holding on, and then they're going to try to make it. They're going to fall 100 times. Would you ever stop your child from learning to walk because you didn't want them to get hurt? No, of course not, right? I mean, it's stupid. But right? That's what we say to ourselves. No, they gotta learn to walk, man, but then we do it in other ways. We stop their development through just wanting it to get it over with. Oh gosh, here, take this. But they want that experience of falling and climbing and getting there and grabbing and then doing it 1,000 times over and over and over again. They're doing these things to build the pathways to learn. So when we think about these things, these are the things that this lifetime learning experience, to bring it full circle here, try to anyway. These are the things that the technology drives us to try to stimulate that sympathetic nervous system that doesn't allow the midbrain and the forebrain to become connected. This hindbrain, midbrain, forebrain development throughout childhood and adulthood, all the way up to age 30 for guys, and for about 25 for women. And so the nervous system at the brain level gets the neuromuscular system, the neuroendocrine system, the neurodigestive system, every single part of the body is connected through this nervous system, and it becomes out of balance, and the brain development becomes out of balance. And we see societally now with a lot of kids who have a lot of knowledge that they can't connect it and do it, either when their knowledge doesn't meet with their ability to figure it out and rationalize it, because they haven't practiced that, they go into fight or flight, and their nervous systems ramp up and they become more out of balance. And so and then the worsening of the situation is just to go right back into something else that gives them the easy satisfaction of completing the game or doing the whatever, but it's also stimulating that fight or flight. So I want to touch base on some of this stuff, just really to do kind of a handoff that I hope that you'll do a couple of things. Number one, Vegas, look it up, watch it. I really think that you'll enjoy learning about the polyvagal theory and how, and looking at the ahas that you're going to have with the way that it's stimulated and the way that the sympathetic nervous system stimulated. Check this guy out on both Facebook, and I'm going to actually create an Instagram account to try to get some knowledge from this guy. Dive into the fact that our lives are an infinite game and that we're constantly learning, and that as I learn, I'm going to bring that knowledge to you in hopefully a concise and digestible format to where then you can follow the pathway out to gain even more knowledge. And if that is that very comforting understanding that life is in process, and if we want it to be better, then we have to be open to the change to get it, being willing to do what is necessary to obtain what is possible. And that family here at Chiropractic Care in Trenton, Georgia, Max Living Office, chiropractic office, we are here to provide that experience for our patients and to give them the care to make sure